After this prayer, your story will change in 24 hours. Ladies and gentlemen, listen to me carefully. Come, life is a collection of stories, some written in joy, some in pain, some in silence, and others in waiting. But hear this truth: no story is permanent when God steps into the narrative. There are moments when heaven interrupts time. Moments when what could not change for years suddenly shifts in hours. Moments when God proves that He is not bound by processes. He only uses them when He chooses. Tonight, I announce to someone under the sound of my voice, after this prayer, your story will change. Not because of noise, not because of emotion, but because alignment is about to happen. Understand, this prayer is not a religious activity. Prayer is a spiritual authorization system. When a man prays correctly, he is not asking God to notice him, that he is positioning himself to receive what has already been released. Many people pray, yet few encounter change. Why? Because results respond to alignment, not volume. Before destiny manifests, posture must be corrected. Heaven does not respond to desperation alone. Heaven responds to understanding mixed with faith. There are people here. Your delay was not denial. Your struggle was not abandonment. Your silence was not rejection. It was timing. Come, and timing has a voice. When the set time comes, even doors that resisted you will open on their own. When the set time comes, help will locate you without explanation. When the set time comes, what mocked you will testify for you. Hear me clearly. Darkness does not fear effort, it fears authority. Come, that is why tonight is not about shouting at your problems. It is about standing in spiritual authority and declaring that what God has written must now manifest. Come. Some of you have been fighting battles you were never meant to fight manually. Prayer transfers the battle from your strength to God's jurisdiction. And listen, breakthrough is often noisy in the spirit before it is visible in the physical. Do not misinterpret resistance as failure. Resistance is proof that something is responding. I speak to destinies that have been paused. I speak to helpers that have been delayed. I speak to doors that have been locked without reason. Within the next 24 hours, let there be movement. Let there be calls. Let there be approvals. Let there be clarity. Let there be restoration. Faith is not hope. Faith is expectation with confidence. When this prayer ends, do not return to doubt. Return with anticipation. Sleep knowing something has shifted. Wake up expecting evidence. Because when God changes a story, He does it suddenly, clearly, and without apology. After this prayer, your story will change and it will be undeniable. Come. The power of divine timing is one of the most misunderstood yet decisive forces that governs change in human lives. Many people assume that progress is strictly a function of effort, consistency, or intelligence. Come, but there are dimensions of life where effort alone cannot produce results until timing gives permission. Divine timing speaks to the reality that life does not only move by speed, it moves by authorization. There are moments when everything looks ready on the outside, yet nothing responds. Come, and there are moments when very little preparation seems visible, yet doors swing open effortlessly. Come, this is because timing is a spiritual law, not merely a chronological one. Time, as humans understand it, is sequential. It moves from yesterday to today to tomorrow. Divine timing, however, is intentional. It is governed by purpose, alignment, and seasons. A season is not defined by dates on a calendar. It is defined by readiness in the spirit and compliance with divine order. This is why two people can do the same thing. Come Come, apply the same principles and experience radically different outcomes. One is acting early, the other is acting on time. Early can feel productive but still be unfruitful, while on time produces results that look sudden and even shocking. When divine timing comes into play, years of delay can collapse into hours of manifestation. This is not exaggeration. It is a pattern repeatedly observed in spiritual and practical life. Come, there are people who struggle in one place for decades and then within a single day receive access, favor, or recognition that changes their entire trajectory. What happened was not magic, it was timing. The moment permission was granted in the spirit, circumstances rearranged themselves to reflect that authorization. This is why timing often feels like acceleration. Nothing new was created, what existed was released. Divine timing also explains why prayer sometimes seems unanswered. Silence does not always mean refusal. In many cases, it means preparation is still ongoing, alignment is still incomplete, or resistance has not yet been dealt with. Timing protects as much as it releases. If certain outcomes were released prematurely, they would destroy the very people asking for them. Timing ensures that when the blessing arrives, the recipient has the capacity, wisdom, and character to sustain it. What feels like delay may actually be mercy disguised as waiting. There is also the uncomfortable truth that timing exposes dependence. Humans prefer control, predictability, and instant feedback. Divine timing removes that illusion and forces trust. Come, you may do everything right and still have to wait, not because something is wrong, but because the appointed moment has not yet arrived. This waiting tests motives. It reveals whether one seeks the outcome or the one who governs outcomes. Many people abandon the process too early because they misinterpret waiting as failure, not realizing that timing is doing deep internal work that visible success could never accomplish. Another critical aspect of divine timing is that it is often announced quietly before it is manifested loudly. There are inner promptings, unusual peace, heightened resistance, or repeated confirmations that signal that a season is shifting. Rarely does timing arrive without warning. It is simply that most people are too distracted or impatient to discern the signals. When timing is near, pressure often increases, not decreases. This is because transitions stretch capacity. Just before breakthrough, familiar systems begin to fail, comfort zones become uncomfortable, and old methods stop working. This is not chaos, it is transition. Divine timing also operates corporately, not just individually. Sometimes a person is ready, but the environment is not. Sometimes the environment is ready, but the person is not. Timing synchronizes people, places, resources, and authority into one converging moment. This is why certain opportunities require being in the right place at the right time. You can have the right skill, but be in the wrong location, or have the right passion, but lack the right connections. Timing orchestrates these elements so that when the door opens, everything required is already present. When prayer is involved, timing becomes even more pronounced. Prayer does not force God to act, it positions the person to act in agreement with divine timing. Effective prayer sharpens sensitivity, so one can recognize when the season has shifted and respond appropriately. Many miss their moment not because it never came, but because they were spiritually dull when it arrived. Timing does not wait indefinitely. Windows open and close. Discernment determines whether one steps through or watches it pass. It is also important to understand that divine timing is not always convenient. It may disrupt routines, challenge expectations, and demand immediate obedience. Some opportunities only last briefly, and hesitation can be costly. This is why preparation matters, even during waiting seasons. Preparation ensures that when timing announces itself, response is swift and confident. What looks like sudden success is often the result of long, unseen preparation meeting precise timing. Ultimately, divine timing redefines what change looks like. Change is not always gradual. Sometimes it is instant. Not all progress is linear. Some is explosive. There are moments when one decision, one prayer, one conversation, or one act of obedience rewrites an entire narrative. These moments do not happen randomly. They happen by design. When timing aligns with faith, action, and authority, outcomes become inevitable. Systems respond, resistance collapses, and what once seemed impossible begins to move with ease, speed, and clarity. Prayer as a legal platform requires a shift from seeing prayer as an emotional exercise to understanding it as a system of spiritual governance. Many people approach prayer as a cry for help, a desperate appeal hoping to persuade God to act. While sincerity matters, the effectiveness in prayer is rooted in understanding. Prayer is not designed to inform God of problems, that it is designed to grant permission for divine intervention within the boundaries of spiritual law. The earth operates on legal principles, and nothing significant happens without authorization. Prayer is the means by which that authorization is consciously released. In spiritual realities, authority precedes activity. Power may exist, but power without authorization remains dormant. This is why prayer functions like a courtroom transaction rather than a marketplace negotiation. When a person prays correctly, they are not attempting to convince God to care. They are presenting a case that aligns with what heaven has already established. Every genuine prayer that produces results is rooted in alignment with divine will, divine word, and divine timing. When these elements converge, prayer becomes a legal instrument that compels outcomes. One of the reasons many prayers appear unanswered is because they are framed emotionally rather than legally. Emotion seeks sympathy, legality seeks enforcement. In legal systems, outcomes are not determined by who cries the loudest, but by who presents the strongest case. Similarly, in prayer, passion alone does not move spiritual systems. What moves them is understanding, alignment, and authority. When prayer is rooted in ignorance, it becomes repetitive noise. When it is rooted in understanding, it becomes a command that creation recognizes. Prayer operates on the principle of jurisdiction. The spiritual realm respects boundaries. Heaven does not invade the earth without invitation, and darkness does not retreat without confrontation. Prayer establishes jurisdiction by declaring who has the right to operate in a given situation. When a believer prays, they are not asking if God can act. They are declaring that God must act because his authority has been invited into that space. This is why silence in prayer can be costly. What is not addressed legally can continue illegally. Words are central to prayer because words are legal instruments in both spiritual and natural courts. Words create records. Spoken prayer is not merely expression, it is documentation. Every word spoken in faith registers in the realm of the Spirit, either to authorize or to cancel activity. This is why careless speech can undermine prayer. A person cannot legally invite victory in prayer and then verbally authorize defeat through fear, doubt, or complaint. Consistency of speech maintains legal standing. Another important dimension of prayer as a legal platform is responsibility. When authority is granted, accountability follows. Prayer does not remove human participation, it defines it. Once a person prays, they are expected to act in alignment with what they have authorized. Many people pray for change, but continue to live as though nothing has shifted. This creates contradiction. Legal authority is sustained by consistent alignment. When actions contradict prayers, authority weakens. Heaven responds to coherence, not confusion. Prayer also functions as an appeal system. In legal frameworks, appeals exist to overturn unjust verdicts. Many situations persist not because they are right, but because they have not been challenged. Prayer challenges existing spiritual verdicts that may have been enforced through ignorance, fear, disobedience, or inherited patterns. When a person prays with understanding, they are appealing against outcomes that do not align with divine intention. Appeals require evidence, and that evidence is often the word covenant or promise that authorizes reversal. Timing plays a crucial role in legal prayer. Even in human courts, timing determines outcomes. Missed deadlines, premature filings, or delayed responses can affect verdicts. In prayer, timing determines when authority is enforced. Some prayers fail not because they are wrong, but because they are mistimed. Their discernment ensures that prayer aligns with the appropriate season. When prayer and timing agree, resistance weakens significantly. Prayer as a legal platform also explains persistence. Persistence is not repetition born of fear, it is consistency born of confidence. In legal matters, persistence communicates certainty. A person who understands their rights does not stop pressing until enforcement is complete. This is why effective prayer often appears bold, calm, and resolute rather than frantic. Confidence in prayer comes from knowing that the case is valid and the authority is legitimate. Another critical element is representation. In legal systems, representation determines how cases are handled. In prayer, representation is spiritual identity. A person must know who they are, not emotionally but legally. Identity defines authority. A person who does not understand their standing will pray from insecurity rather than authority. Legal prayer flows from identity, not need. Need cries, identity commands. Prayer also sets spiritual precedents. Legal decisions establish precedents that affect future cases. When a breakthrough occurs through prayer, it alters the spiritual atmosphere. What was once difficult becomes easier. This is why certain victories seem to unlock multiple areas of life simultaneously. One legal victory can shift an entire system. Understanding prayer as a legal platform removes frustration and replaces it with precision. It teaches restraint, discernment, and intentionality. Prayer becomes less about how long and more about how aligned. Less about volume and more about authority. Less about desperation and more about certainty. When prayer is approached this way, results are no longer accidental or rare. They become predictable responses to correctly applied spiritual law. Alignment before manifestation is a principle that governs why some desires remain invisible despite intense effort. Sincere prayer and genuine longing. Manifestation is never the starting point in spiritual or practical processes. That is the outcome of harmony between inner posture, belief systems, actions, and authority. When alignment is missing, manifestation is delayed not as punishment but as protection. What people often interpret as resistance is frequently misalignment, quietly preventing collapse. Alignment begins internally before it ever shows externally. A person may desire progress, breakthrough, or change, but desire alone does not qualify one for manifestation. The inner world must agree with the outcome being requested. This includes belief, perception, and expectation. If a person prays for elevation but internally associates elevation with fear, inadequacy, or self-doubt, there is a contradiction. Contradiction weakens outcomes. The spirit cannot consistently produce what the mind rejects. Even if the mouth requests it, manifestation follows internal agreement. Faith plays a central role in alignment, but faith is often misunderstood as optimism or positive thinking. True faith is alignment of conviction with divine truth. It is the ability to agree with what has been declared even when there is no evidence yet. Misaligned faith focuses on outcomes without transformation. Aligned faith focuses on becoming before receiving. This is why some people receive quickly and lose just as quickly. They were manifested into a season they were never aligned to sustain. Obedience is another critical dimension of alignment. Obedience is not about rule keeping. It is about positioning. Instructions are often less about morality and more about geography, timing, and access. The single act of disobedience can place a person outside the corridor where manifestation is designed to occur. Many opportunities are location sensitive, association sensitive, and timing sensitive. When obedience is delayed, manifestation is delayed. When obedience is partial, outcomes become partial. Alignment demands precision. Not approximation. Spiritual posture also determines alignment. Posture refers to how one stands in relation to authority, truth, and responsibility. Pride disrupts alignment by elevating self above instruction. The fear disrupts alignment by shrinking capacity below requirement. Offense disrupts alignment by poisoning perception. These postures create internal resistance that no amount of prayer can override. Manifestation is cooperative. It requires openness, humility, and teachability. What refuses to be adjusted cannot be advanced. Alignment also involves emotional regulation. Unresolved emotional patterns can sabotage manifestation even when spiritual principles are understood. Anger, bitterness, resentment, and unresolved trauma distort interpretation and response. A person may be spiritually aligned in doctrine, but emotionally misaligned in reaction. This creates instability. The manifestation requires stability because it introduces new weight, responsibility, and visibility. Emotional instability can turn blessings into burdens. Alignment ensures that when manifestation arrives, it does not overwhelm the recipient. Consistency is another expression of alignment. Sporadic obedience produces sporadic results. Alignment is sustained agreement, not momentary enthusiasm. Many people experience temporary breakthroughs because alignment was temporary. Once discipline faded, posture shifted, and priorities changed, manifestation withdrew. This is not punishment, it is law. Systems respond to consistency. Alignment must be maintained, not just initiated. What is not maintained cannot multiply. Alignment also extends to associations. Who you listen to, who you submit to, and who you walk with affects manifestation. Destiny is relational. Certain outcomes require certain environments. A seed planted in the wrong soil may be genuine, but will not thrive. Many people pray for elevation while remaining aligned with mindsets, habits, and relationships that contradict where they are going. Manifestation does not relocate environments, it responds to them. If the environment cannot sustain the outcome will not be released. Another overlooked aspect of alignment is patience. Patience is not passive waiting. It is active trust. It maintains posture while timing completes its work. Impatience leads to premature actions that disrupt alignment. Many people force doors that were meant to open, and once forced, those doors required excessive effort to keep open. Alignment allows doors to open naturally and remain open without strain. What opens in alignment does not require manipulation to sustain. Alignment before manifestation also protects identity. Sudden exposure without internal clarity can distort self-perception. Some people become what they receive instead of allowing what they receive to serve who they are. Alignment ensures that identity is rooted, not reactive. When identity is stable, manifestation enhances purpose rather than replacing it. Finally, alignment clarifies intention. Manifestation magnifies motive. If motive is impure, manifestation exposes it publicly. Alignment purifies motive by confronting selfish ambition, insecurity, and comparison. This internal purification is often the most uncomfortable part of the process, which is why many abandon alignment prematurely. Yet it is this purification that determines the quality and longevity of what manifests. Manifestation is not delayed because heaven is reluctant. It is delayed because alignment is incomplete. When faith agrees, obedience positions, posture yields, emotions stabilize, associations support, and timing matures, manifestation becomes a natural consequence rather than a struggle. The role of spiritual authority is central to understanding why words spoken from certain positions produce immediate effect, while others seem to dissolve into silence. Authority is not volume, charisma, or intensity. It is legitimacy. In every system, whether spiritual or natural, authority determines what is recognized, enforced, and obeyed. Power may exist everywhere, but authority is selective. It flows through structure, order, and recognition. This is why two people can speak the same words with different outcomes. One speaks with permission, the other speaks with desire. Spiritual authority is derived, not self-generated. No one assumes it by ambition or declaration. Authority is granted by alignment with a higher order. In spiritual dynamics, authority flows from submission before it ever manifests as command. What a person is submitted to determines what responds to them. This principle explains why rebellion weakens prayer and obedience strengthens it. Authority that is not backed by submission becomes noise. Authority that is rooted in submission becomes law. Words spoken under authority are not suggestions, they are transactions. When authority is present, the spiritual realm responds automatically, not emotionally. Authority bypasses debate. This is why effective spiritual speech carries calmness rather than desperation. Desperation negotiates. Authority declares. Authority does not shout to be heard. It speaks knowing it will be obeyed. This confidence is not arrogance, it is awareness of position. Spiritual authority also explains the concept of enforcement. Many outcomes already exist in potential but remain unenforced. Authority is what converts permission into experience. Without authority, promises remain theoretical. With authority, they become practical. This is why knowledge alone does not produce change. Knowledge reveals what is possible, but authority activates what is permitted. A person may know the truth and still live beneath it because they lack the authority to enforce it. Authority is closely tied to identity. A person can only operate in authority to the extent that they understand who they are and where they stand. Identity confusion produces authority confusion. When someone does not know their position, they either overreach or underfunction. Overreach produces resistance. Underfunction produces stagnation. True authority is balanced. It neither begs nor bullies. It speaks from clarity. Spiritual authority also operates within boundaries. Authority is jurisdictional. One cannot command what they are not authorized to address. This is why the discernment is critical. Not every battle is assigned, and not every issue is within one's jurisdiction. Authority that ignores jurisdiction becomes strained and ineffective. Authority that respects boundaries becomes precise and impactful. Knowing when to speak is as important as knowing what to say. Another dimension of authority is consistency. Authority grows through faithful stewardship. It is not static, it increases with responsibility and integrity. When authority is abused, it diminishes. When it is honored, it expands. This is why character matters. Character is the container that holds authority. Without character, authority leaks. With character, authority stabilizes and matures. Spiritual authority also confronts resistance directly. Resistance is not always a sign of failure. It is often a response to authority being exercised. When authority enters a space, whatever opposes order reacts. This reaction can appear as delay, confusion, or opposition. Those unfamiliar with authority interpret resistance as defeat and retreat prematurely. Those who understand authority recognize resistance as confirmation and persist calmly. Authority does not require majority support. It requires legitimacy. In many cases, authority stands alone before it is acknowledged publicly. Recognition often follows manifestation, not precedes it. This is why waiting for validation before exercising authority leads to paralysis. Authority is validated by results, not applause. When outcomes change, recognition follows naturally. Spiritual authority also shapes environments. Atmospheres respond to authority. Fear retreats, clarity increases. And order establishes itself where authority is exercised consistently. This is why certain individuals bring peace into chaos simply by their presence. Their authority has shaped their inner world so thoroughly that it spills outward. Authority is contagious when it is authentic. Another important aspect is that authority must be spoken to be activated. Silence does not enforce authority. Thought alone does not enforce authority. Words release authority into motion. This is why verbal declaration matters. Silence allows systems to continue by default. Speech interrupts default settings and introduces a new order. Authority spoken aligns systems that were previously uncoordinated. Spiritual authority is also accountable. Every level of authority answers to a higher one. This accountability keeps authority clean and effective. When accountability is rejected, authority becomes oppressive or corrupt. That healthy authority welcomes accountability because it understands that authority is stewardship, not ownership. What is stewarded must be reported on. Authority also clarifies responsibility. Once authority is exercised, their responsibility follows. Authority does not remove effort, it directs it. A person operating in authority still acts, but their actions are focused rather than frantic. Authority eliminates wasted motion. That it simplifies decision-making because it removes fear of outcome and replaces it with confidence in alignment. Understanding the role of spiritual authority transforms how one prays, speaks, acts, and responds. It shifts behavior from reaction to direction, from emotion to enforcement, from struggle to governance. Where authority is recognized, chaos loses its voice, delay loses its grip, and outcomes begin to obey order. Resistance and sudden breakthroughs are inseparable realities in transformational moments. Come, and understanding their relationship prevents discouragement when pressure increases instead of decreases. Resistance is not random opposition, it is often a reaction to impending change. In many cases, resistance intensifies not because something is wrong, but because something significant is about to shift. Systems, habits, patterns, and forces that have benefited from the current order instinctively resist disruption. When breakthrough approaches, resistance surfaces to test resolve, clarity, and authority. Resistance functions as an alarm in the unseen realm. It signals that an existing structure is being challenged. Nothing resists what poses no threat. Stagnation attracts comfort, not opposition, when movement begins. Resistance appears because movement introduces uncertainty and loss of control for whatever has dominated that space. This is why individuals often experience the greatest emotional, mental, or circumstantial pressure just before change occurs. It is not coincidence, it is reaction. Many people misinterpret resistance as a sign to stop. This misunderstanding has caused countless near breakthroughs to collapse into retreat. Resistance is often loud, confusing, and intimidating. It exaggerates consequences and magnifies fear. Its goal is not necessarily to defeat, but to delay. Delay weakens focus, drains energy, and creates doubt. If resistance can cause hesitation, it can postpone outcomes indefinitely. This is why clarity during resistance is critical. Some sudden breakthroughs rarely announce themselves gently. They often arrive after a period of contradiction, where effort seems unrewarded and progress appears reversed. This contradiction is part of the breaking process. Before a system changes, it strains. Before a barrier collapses, pressure builds. What looks like regression is often compression. Compression concentrates force. When force is concentrated long enough, release becomes inevitable. Resistance also reveals what needs strengthening. Weak areas are exposed under pressure. Inconsistencies surface. Motives are tested. If alignment were not sufficient, resistance would not be necessary. Resistance refines readiness. It exposes emotional instability, fragmented focus, and misplaced confidence. Those who allow resistance to correct posture emerge stronger. Those who react emotionally often sabotage the very breakthrough they were approaching. There is also a psychological dimension to resistance. The mind is conditioned by familiarity. Even negative patterns feel safe because they are predictable. Breakthrough threatens familiarity. It introduces new responsibility, visibility, and expectation. The subconscious may resist change even when the conscious mind desires it. This internal resistance can manifest as procrastination, distraction, or sudden fatigue. Recognizing this internal pushback prevents self-sabotage during critical moments. Sudden breakthroughs occur when resistance reaches its limit. Resistance is finite. Alignment is cumulative. Every act of obedience, persistence, and faith adds weight to alignment. Resistance expends energy trying to maintain control. Eventually, the imbalance becomes unsustainable. At that point, collapse happens quickly. This is why breakthroughs often seem instantaneous. The process was gradual, but the release is abrupt. Another reason breakthroughs appear sudden is because much of the work happens invisibly. Decisions, alignments, conversations, and permissions are being arranged beneath the surface. Resistance distracts attention from this unseen progress. People focus on what is pushing against them rather than what is moving toward them. When the breakthrough manifests, it feels unearned or unexpected, even though it is the result of accumulated unseen effort. Resistance often escalates emotionally before it collapses structurally. Emotional turbulence increases doubt, frustration, weariness, and impatience intensify. This emotional escalation is strategic. If emotional stability breaks, authority weakens. Maintaining emotional regulation during resistance is therefore not optional, it is essential. Calm persistence outlasts frantic effort. Stability starves resistance of leverage. Sudden breakthroughs also tend to bypass conventional expectations. They do not always come through the channels people anticipate. Resistance narrows perception, making individuals fixate on a single outcome or method. Breakthroughs often arrive through unexpected conversations, decisions, or opportunities. Those who remain flexible during resistance recognize these openings. Those who become rigid miss them because they are too busy fighting the wrong battle. Resistance can also be collective. Sometimes resistance intensifies because multiple transitions are converging simultaneously. When personal change intersects with environmental or relational shifts, pressure multiplies. This does not mean collapse is imminent. It means transformation is layered. Layered breakthroughs often follow layered resistance. When release comes, it affects multiple areas at once, giving the impression of overnight change. Sudden breakthroughs also redefine identity. After resistance breaks, the person is not the same as before. Capacity increases, confidence stabilizes, perspective shifts. That this internal change is often more significant than the external outcome. Resistance was shaping endurance, discernment, and authority. The breakthrough merely reveals what was formed during pressure. Those who understand resistance do not rush it away or dramatize it. They observe it, learn from it, and continue moving with precision. Resistance loses power when it is no longer feared. Fear feeds resistance. Understanding starves it. When resistance is treated as information rather than opposition, it becomes manageable. Breakthroughs do not always remove all resistance immediately. Some resistance dissipates gradually as new systems establish themselves. However, the central blockage collapses decisively. What once required effort begins to flow. What once resisted now cooperates. This shift confirms that resistance was never permanent, it was transitional. Recognizing resistance as a companion to breakthrough reframes the experience of pressure. Pressure no longer signals failure, it signals proximity. Difficulty no longer implies misdirection. It implies disruption of an old order. When resistance is interpreted correctly, it no longer discourages persistence. It sharpens focus, strengthens resolve, and prepares the ground for release that arrives not gradually, but suddenly, decisively, and unmistakably. Faith that expects evidence goes beyond belief as a concept and enters belief as posture. Many people say they have faith, but their expectations contradict their declarations. True faith is not merely agreeing that something is possible. It is arranging one's inner and outer life as though the outcome is certain. Faith that expects evidence is not passive optimism. It is active anticipation rooted in conviction, alignment, and trust in divine integrity. When faith is genuine, it prepares for manifestation before manifestation appears. Expectation is the language faith speaks to the future. What a person truly believes about tomorrow is revealed by how they prepare today. The faith that expects evidence does not wait to see before it acts. It adjusts behavior, decisions, and reactions in advance. This is why expectation can be uncomfortable. It forces commitment without visible confirmation. Many prefer belief without expectation because as it feels safer, expectation risks disappointment. However, faith that avoids expectation is incomplete. It believes in theory but hesitates in practice. Evidence does not define faith, but faith invites evidence. Faith does not depend on outcomes to exist. Yet outcomes often follow faith because systems respond to certainty. Doubt fragments expectation. When expectation is fragmented, actions become inconsistent. Inconsistency weakens momentum. The faith that expects evidence produces coherence. Thoughts, words, and actions align toward a single anticipated result. This alignment creates spiritual and psychological momentum that attracts cooperation rather than resistance. Faith with expectation also reshapes perception. When expectation is present, attention sharpens. Opportunities are recognized faster. Signals that would normally be ignored are noticed. This is because expectation tunes awareness. A person expecting change interprets events differently from one bracing for disappointment. The same situation can either be seen as confirmation or contradiction, depending on expectation. Faith that expects evidence chooses interpretation that sustains forward motion. There is also a discipline to expectation. Expectation must be guarded. Negative speech, careless assumptions, and pessimistic environments erode expectation quietly. Faith does not thrive in atmospheres of constant skepticism. This does not mean avoiding reality. It means choosing which reality has authority. Faith that expects evidence acknowledges challenges without enthroning them. It refuses to rehearse failure mentally or verbally. What is rehearsed gains influence. Expectation is also relational. It is rooted in trust, not technique. Faith that expects evidence trusts the character behind the promise. When trust is weak, expectation wavers. Many struggle to expect evidence not because they doubt outcomes, but because they doubt consistency. Trust stabilizes expectation. When trust is secure, waiting does not erode confidence. It may test patience, but it does not dissolve hope. Another critical dimension of faith that expects evidence is readiness. Readiness is silent expectation. Preparing space for what is believed to be coming is an act of faith. This preparation can be internal, such as emotional readiness, or external, such as practical arrangements. Lack of readiness reveals doubt more clearly than words ever could. A person who truly expects does not need to be convinced when the moment arrives. They are already positioned. Faith that expects evidence also resists false urgency. Expectation is not impatience. Impatience demands control. That expectation maintains trust while staying alert. It understands that timing matters. This balance prevents reckless decisions that sabotage outcomes. Faith does not rush manifestation. It respects process while anticipating fulfillment. This maturity distinguishes expectation from anxiety. Expectation also strengthens endurance. When someone expects evidence, they endure resistance differently. Resistance becomes temporary interference rather than permanent obstruction. This perspective sustains energy during prolonged effort. Without expectation, endurance turns into survival. With expectation, endurance becomes investment. The same effort feels lighter when it is fueled by certainty rather than desperation. Faith that expects evidence also transforms prayer. Prayer becomes dialogue rather than pleading. Words change tone. Requests become declarations. Declarations become confirmations after prayer. Their expectation continues the conversation through behavior. The prayer may end, but expectation remains active. The faith does not clock out when prayer finishes. It carries the outcome forward. expectation also creates accountability. Expecting evidence means being willing to adjust when evidence begins to appear. Some people pray for change but resist when change arrives because it disrupts comfort. Expectation removes this contradiction. It keeps the heart open and responsive when evidence appears. Expectation recognizes it and cooperates instead of hesitating. Another overlooked aspect is that expectation multiplies gratitude. Gratitude does not wait until everything is complete. Faith that expects evidence expresses gratitude early, not as denial of reality, but as recognition of certainty. Early gratitude reinforces expectation. It affirms trust in advance. This posture strengthens emotional resilience and sustains hope. Faith that expects evidence also influences others. Expectation is contagious. People respond to certainty. Confidence attracts support. Indecision attracts confusion. When expectation is visible, environments adjust. Conversations change. Assistance emerges. Doors open. This does not happen because expectation manipulates people, but because clarity invites cooperation. Finally, their faith that expects evidence protects against disappointment. This may sound contradictory, but disappointment is not caused by unmet expectations. It is caused by misplaced ones. Faith that expects evidence anchors expectation in integrity rather than outcomes. It expects fulfillment, but it also trusts wisdom. If fulfillment looks different, faith adjusts without collapsing. Expectation remains, even if form changes. Faith that expects evidence is not loud, frantic, or demanding. It is steady, confident, calm, and prepared. It lives as though change is not a possibility, but an approaching reality, shaping thought, action, and response in quiet anticipation of what is already on its way. In conclusion, this message reminds us that change is not accidental and transformation is not random. When divine timing aligns, prayer becomes a legal authorization. Alignment prepares the vessel. Spiritual authority enforces outcomes. Resistance signals proximity to breakthrough. And faith rises to expect evidence. Stories do not remain the same. What shifts lives is not noise, haste, or desperation, but understanding mixed with alignment and authority. When these principles come together, change no longer struggles to happen. It is released naturally and decisively. This is why the assurance stands strong that after prayer, things can move within hours. Not because time is pressured, but because heaven responds to order. When posture is corrected, authority is exercised, resistance is endured with clarity, and faith anticipates manifestation. Delays lose their power. The story changes because the foundation has changed. And when the foundation changes, outcomes must follow.